Okay, so it's day 3 of my break in southern Spain. Beautiful, beautiful day. Yesterday's rain has all gone and we got a clear blue sky. Beautiful sunny day. And so I'm just going to go on a walk today up this dry riverbed. And we'll have a look and see what we can see along the track here. Not going to walk too far because it's going to warm up soon, so I'm taking advantage of the cool of the morning. We'll get up and have a little wander up this valley, have a look at some of the plants and maybe a few of the animals, and then we'll head back for some lunch. Now I keep on finding it amazing that the plants I'm so familiar with in my herb garden are sometimes found wild when I go somewhere else in the world. And so here we are, growing out of a tiny little cavity in the rock is rosemary. And this is exactly the same rosemary that I grow in my herb garden at home. A little bit more wiry and tough here because it's growing in more challenging conditions. But let's have a sniff of those. Really, really powerful, resinous rosemary scent. Amazing. Well, if I get a chance, I might pick a bit of that and maybe we'll make some bread. Maybe make some focaccia with rosemary and olive oil. So despite all that rain we had yesterday, there's no actual water flowing in this little valley here. It has been known to happen if they get a lot of rain up in those hills. Sometimes this will turn into a torrent, and very suddenly. There's no risk of that today though, so we're just going to enjoy our little stroll. So yeah, I'm seeing lots of rosemary plants around. It's November, so not a whole load of things are flowering at the moment, so some of the plants are not so easy to recognise. But anyway, we'll have a look and see what we find. I don't know if you can hear this on the camera, but I can hear the buzzing of bees. Let's see if we can see what they're after. I've got a feeling it's going to be this. So here we go, another plant that's familiar in our gardens. We've got lavender growing up there through the middle of a wiry thorn bush. There we go, see, lavender flowers growing wild. Lavender, of course, a very familiar cottage garden plant, but originates here in the Mediterranean. These large trees over here are fig trees, and here in Spain they will fruit twice a year. They'll produce a summer crop, well, they'll produce one crop that forms around about now and overwinters and then ripens in spring, and then they'll produce a second crop which starts in spring and ripens in kind of late summer. I can't see any embryo figs on here at all at the moment, but I expect if we look closely we'd find something. Anyway, let's move on. So we can see here from the way the track has washed out that water does flow here sometimes. You can see definite evidence of flow down there. Probably not all that often. And I imagine underneath this very loose gravelly soil there may actually be a watercourse that flows trickling through the rocks. But at the moment there is no surface water running. I've just spotted another of our very familiar garden plants right here. So here we go. This down here, this is thyme. Again, very important culinary herb. Growing wild in southern Spain. And like I say, if I get a chance, I'm going to pick some of this and we'll do some cooking with it this week. Maybe we'll make roast chicken with thyme, and maybe we'll have some rosemary and olive oil focaccia bread on the side, if I get a chance. But if not, it's nice just to enjoy these things. Growing in hard conditions like this, these aromatic herbs do actually produce higher quantities of the aromatic oils that you get. And so my experience is that these herbs are actually a lot more fragrant when they're picked from a wild place like this than if you grew them in the garden. And if they've got a bit of an easy life, they don't tend to make so much of the flavour. But here, growing in slightly tougher conditions, they seem to produce really, really aromatic flavours. And I keep on, I think, saying don't forget to look at the small details, because look here. So here we've got young lavender plants, and this one's just producing its first little flower. Isn't that beautiful? And then over here we've got a tiny little plant here. I'm not really sure what this is, but it's clearly mustard family because it has these little 4-petaled flowers. So presumably some kind of cress or something like that. And then over here we've got something that's clearly in the same family as dandelions and daisies. And so all of these small plants are coming to life now in November, because it won't get frosty here. It will stay relatively mild through the winter, and so these plants are getting ready for the next growing season, because there'll be some rains through the winter and a few little rains in spring, and then it will get suddenly very hot and the ground will just parch and all this green will burn away until this time next year. Okay, so we come to the first of my unidentified plants. Perhaps you'd like to help me with this one. So we've got a large shrub here, almost a small tree, except it's a very sprawling habit with pointy little oval leaves which are slightly succulent. They feel like they're slightly succulent, and it has these orange red berries on it. So what am I looking at here, folks? I mean, if I get a chance I will look this up in a book or online and see if I can identify it. But what do you think we're looking at here? Here's another one which I'm going to need some assistance in identifying. I might find this in the book. If I do, then you'll see the name of it on the screen now. If not, then help me out. So this is a shrubby sort of plant. Leaves tend to look a little bit like, almost like rose leaves, or like almost like a legume, but it's not a legume because it's got these clusters of red fruits. And I don't know whether these are berries or whether they're some sort of dry little things. Let's have a squish of one. They're quite dry and aromatic. Oh, they smell sort of, yeah, they smell really pungently resinous, almost like ammonia, but not ammonia. It's that kind of penetrating resinous smell. So that noise up there, if you heard that, I think was a partridge. Now it is of course not a completely wild trail that we're walking here. As you can probably tell, this dry riverbed has been used as a road, probably for farmers and whoever lives or works on the little small holdings that are up here, because this is a cultivated land. So as you can see, there's evidence here of cultivation. There's a level field there and what looks like some quite ancient, maybe water lifting, maybe a well or something over there. Let's, without causing any trouble, let's just have a wander up there, have a look at that old equipment up there. Okay, so I wanted to go and have a wander up and have a look at what looks like an old wellhead up there, actually water lifting equipment probably, or maybe just a little pump. But there's a sign here saying this is private, and I'm going to respect that. So that's as close as we get to that ancient water pumping equipment right over there. Here we can see why these things can become treacherous in wet conditions. There's a little tributary that comes in here off quite a steep water catchment. You can see up there, there's the mountain's almost like a funnel up the top there, and any rain that falls on there can only go one way, and it will tend to run down these side tributaries. And so there might be dozens of these that will all feed into this little valley and can just suddenly overwhelm it with an influx of water if we get a sudden and heavy rain. There's no chance of that today. We are set for a sunny and quite warm day today, so I'm okay walking up here. Okay, so here we do go off-piste a little bit. The track that I've been following curves back around on itself to the right here. But I want to follow the valley up this way. So we are now going off-road. And we're just going to follow the dry riverbed up and see what we find. Seeing a lot more examples of thyme and rosemary, as I think the elevation is rising and we're probably getting a bit drier. But look at that, isn't that magnificent? And clearly the bees are loving it too. Now here we can definitely see evidence of running water. So what we got here is, when water is running, this would be a series of pools and little waterfalls. And it starts to climb a bit more steeply now. Yeah, you can see the water has worn the rocks smooth here a little bit over time, but we are heading up into a series of cascades until we come to here, which is, wow, look at this. So this was obviously a watercourse that's gone over a bit of harder rock, and as the water's come down that channel there, it's hollowed out a big cavity and emptied it out of all of this sediment here. Now we might not go very much further because I'm starting to feel out of breath a little bit now from the climbing, but also it's warming up, so it might be time to retreat to the shade and have a cup of coffee. Or maybe not, maybe we'll go a little bit further. One thing to say, I am conscious that the gravel and stones and soil here is very similar in appearance. In fact, the whole landscape is very similar in appearance to what I've seen in various gold panning and gold mining videos. And it did briefly make me wonder whether there's gold in them there hills, but I suspect probably not, or not in any great quantity. The people of this region historically have been quite poor but not stupid. I can't quite believe that if there was gold in the ground here that they would have ignored it or failed to notice. So probably the lack of evidence of mining here is evidence of absence of gold. So I'm not going to get the pan out and try and find any. Tempting as that is, I have better things to do with my time than chase after shiny metal. Now, I did however find this, which is very heavy for its size, and it shows some evidence of brown and orange staining there. So I got a feeling that might be a piece of magnetite or something like that. I'll take that home and we'll give that a test. Perhaps we'll look at that in another video. It might just be a rock. It might just be a piece of lava, but it does feel heavy for its size, so I think that might have some metal in it. Might be iron, stone of some sort. So I think we will wander a bit further on up. Maybe just see if this river meets another one, or meets another track or anything like that. It's a nice day and it's not too hot yet, so we can afford to wander a little bit further. It is getting harder to traverse this rough ground. The landscape is quite broken up by the water that has flowed across here. I've got some nice stout shoes, so I should be okay. And there is a bit of a track here, so I'm clearly not the first person to have walked this. Just up there I can see dragonflies zipping around, which is usually evidence of actual pools of standing water. So I wonder if we'll actually find them. They might be off to one side, they might be hidden inside a tiny little cave. We really won't know, but yeah, it could be that there's a little pond around here somewhere. We'll see if we can find it. I can see trees up there. I can actually see pine trees. So we are getting a bit higher in elevation. But just a stark reminder of how punishing this land is. That, I think, is a sheep or goat skull. I think that's sheep or goat. If you know better, if you know exactly what that is, perhaps you let me know. Anyway, let's press on. And we are climbing quite steeply now, so every few yards I'm climbing up a little waterfall, and so we're getting to higher elevations. And here are the first of the pine trees up in the hills. Now what we've got down here is very interesting. So here we've got a little plant of thyme, and it is covered with these little red threads. And these red threads are parasitic plants. This is called madder, I believe, and it's a little plant that has no chlorophyll of its own, and it grows a little bit like mistletoe, and so it will parasitize these other plants and steal sugars and other nutrients from them, possibly killing the plant in the process. But these little tendrils will quest off to see if they can find another plant to attach onto. And the seeds of this madder plant, I can't see any flowers on it at the moment, but this is a flowering plant. These red threads, although it has no leaves, it will produce flowers and it will produce seeds. And those seeds germinate, and they have to find a host plant within a matter of a few inches, or else they will die. So there we go, that's madder. It's growing on a thyme plant. You can see the thyme plant's looking a bit unhealthy as a result. Quite remarkable how abruptly the landscape has changed. And we've got a little pine wood here, with forest soil, with moss on the ground. Completely different little microclimate right here. And I wouldn't be all that surprised, although I suspect the locals have probably got here before me. But I wouldn't be all that surprised to find some fungi here. Wouldn't be surprised if we found saffron milkcaps somewhere here today. I also wouldn't be surprised if they do grow here, but somebody else got here before me. So you might have thought it was too arid in southern Spain for fungi, but here we go. Not anything I recognise, although it looks to me like this is going to be a bolete of some sort. Let's just pick one and have a look. Yeah, so it's a bolete of some sort. So you can tell it's a bolete of some sort because it has pores in place of gills underneath. Now I've no idea what this is, so there's not a chance of me eating this. But there we go. So we've got fungi growing on this little damp corner here in and underneath these pine trees. And I can see other examples of them here and there. So obviously doing quite well here. Wow, big dragonfly just swooped over the top of me there. Let's see if it comes back. There it goes, up there. I don't know if you can see even a glimpse of that on camera. Here we have more examples of that little bolete fungus here. Now if I had to guess, I would say that was probably edible. It is a boletus species, the one I picked and I broke in half, and it didn't turn any weird colours or anything like that. So if I had to guess, I would say those probably are edible, except if you know me, you know I don't guess when it comes to eating fungi. I'll only eat them if I've identified them, and I haven't brought my book with me, so all we're going to do today is actually look at these and then leave them exactly where they are. As long as the way seems like it's clear, I'm going to keep on going and we'll see where this ends up. It can't go very much further because we are getting now to the point where we will go up into the hills, but let's see if we can actually get to that point. There's a very large butterfly up there. I don't know what that is. So I think it's a swallowtail. Oh, it's coming down. Let's have a look. Well, I didn't get a very good glimpse of that, so I guess we won't know. But there you go. Onward. And here's something else interesting. So we've got some little burrows here, probably rabbit. I don't suppose I'm going to see any rabbits today because walking on this crunchy stone gravel riverbed means they're going to hear me a long way off before I see them. Also, I'm yapping away at the camera, so that doesn't really help. I'm seeing and hearing a lot more small birds up here, which probably means there's more food for them in the form of invertebrates, seeds, berries, that kind of thing. It's interesting that just here there seems to be a sort of local subspecies of rosemary with pale blue to white flowers. It's still rosemary. In fact, it's a huge and quite majestic specimen, All of the rosemary plants around this specific area here are a white flowered variety. Let's have a look at a couple more over here. So yeah, here's one right in the middle of the path. Again, coming into flower, and the flowers are these little white ones. Obviously just a local variety of some sort. You know, these things are variable by nature, and it seems like the white flowered variety seems to have prevailed here. This is quite nice, this little bit of shade. Most welcome actually, because the day is starting to warm up. I am going to have a hot trek back down, so it's nice to enjoy a little bit of shade while we got the chance. Well, we've got a choice here. That way or that way. That way seems to climb slightly more steeply. This way looks like it is the main tributary. Let's follow this way. Just rest for a moment here in the shade. Now we've got different plants growing down here. Those look like arums to me. Those heart-shaped leaves look like they're going to be arums of some sort. Now those tend to characteristically prefer a damper climate and environment. Seeing a lot more and larger pine trees now. just a generally different profile of vegetation and animals. Now this is interesting. What we've got here is definitely a bulb of some sort. That looks to me like it's going to be, I don't know, maybe wild daffodils or something like that. Maybe Star of Bethlehem. One of those sorts of plants. There's a few examples of it around here. But definitely some sort of bulbous plant, I would say. I'm sorry for the wobbly camera. The footing here is actually getting a little bit more uneven and difficult to navigate. So there will come a point where I have to turn around just because I don't want a broken ankle. Not right out here in the middle of nowhere. This may be as far as we go now. The riverbed has kind of petered out and become a bit disorderly. It goes around this corner still, and we're in a plantation now. A little plantation of pine trees here. Not sure why they'd have been planted here. Maybe somebody planted them for firewood, or maybe shade for their animals, or something else like that, or maybe just to stabilise the soil. But you can see that we're at a higher, more moist elevation now. Oh, here we are. So we've met a little road. So I think this might be the end of the trail for this morning. Yeah, I could carry on further up there, or I could follow that trail and see where it goes. I think it goes over the mountains there. But I feel like I've climbed enough today, so I think we'll have a little rest, sip of water, sit down in the shade, and then we'll head back down. I'm just darting across the path in front of me. I just saw a little green lizard. There it goes. On top of that rock there, and it's gone. Now that lizard had a very short tail, which probably means it's had an encounter with a bird at some point, and it shed its tail as a means of defence, and that tail will have wriggled and attracted the bird's attention while the lizard got away. Now there are lizards that naturally have short tails, but that one was unnaturally short. So yeah, that's obviously had a bit of an encounter with a predator at some point. So that looks like a good place to sit and just have a little rest. So in a moment we'll head back on down the same place we came up. I don't fancy getting lost today. So all that remains is just to thank you, and I am tremendously grateful that you've taken the time to spend with me today on this walk up a dry, well not so dry, river valley in southern Spain. I hope you've enjoyed it, I certainly have. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.